What is going on, Fit Fam? Welcome on back to my channel. My name is Megan Janice. I'm the founder of Nomadic Fitness, and I teach you ladies how to eat way more food without any restrictions, work out smarter instead of harder, so you can build that banging hourglass body and feel amazing at the same time, strong, healthy, energized, and then maintain these results year-round for life with ease. So if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe and like, and if you are coming back, thanks so much for joining for another video. Okay, in today's video, I'm gonna walk through how to lose body fat and how to do it the right way, the safe way, the smart way, the effective way, so that you're actually going to lose body fat, get the best results as fast as possible, and then most importantly, that you're actually going to be able to maintain results without having to do anything crazy and actually understanding the science, how your body works, so that you're going to be able to be fit forever. Okay, so there are two different ways that you can lose fat, and these are also two steps that are required to lose fat and to actually maintain the results all of the time. So the first one is reverse dieting, or just calling it reversing. This is where you are intentionally, gradually increasing the amount of food that you eat over time so that your metabolism is going to adapt and you are going to have a faster metabolism. You're going to be burning way more calories 24/7 around the clock. And this is the most important part to actually maintaining results all of the time. And then the second step is cutting. Cutting is slang for a fat loss phase. And a fat loss phase means being in a moderate calorie deficit. So you've probably heard a lot about being in a calorie deficit and how that's the only way to lose fat. And technically there is a lot of truth to that the best, fastest, most guaranteed way to for sure lose fat is eating a little bit less than the amount that you are burning. And this is the most important thing to understand about cutting or going into a fat loss phase, aka having a calorie deficit. You cannot go into a calorie deficit if your calories are already so consistently low. It just is not going to work. So if you are a woman and you are consistently eating less than 1,600 calories a day, I'm gonna set that as kind of the minimum, you cannot do a cut. You literally do not have enough fuel coming into your body to be able to drop your calories any lower. Because think about it, you'd have to drop at least 300 calories at the start of a cut. So if you're only eating 1,600, that means going down to 1,300 calories. And then throughout your cut, you're gonna have to keep dropping calories bit by bit so that you're gonna continue to see progress, which means getting to like 1,000 calories a day. It's just not going to work. Your body is not going to be able to lose fat on so little calories. Please don't do it. This is why we need to reverse first. First off, before you even think about doing a calorie deficit and going into a fat loss phase, you are making sure that your body is ready to actually handle it. So the analogy for this is thinking of building a house, right? You need to have the foundation to actually be able to build a house on top. If you didn't have that foundation, you wouldn't have the house, right? So this is the same thing with reversing. So increasing your metabolism, having a higher amount of food coming into your body consistently, that sets the foundations of your body to be able to lose fat and keep it off for good. And this is because when you have a higher intake, obviously you're burning way more calories all the time. You have a lot more energy. You're just gonna feel so much better because obviously you're fueled, you're nourished, and having more energy is going to translate in your workouts because you have more food coming into your body, which means you have more energy to perform in the gym and actually get stronger. And then because you're getting stronger and because you are eating a lot of food, that is also how you're going to build muscle. And of course, the body that we wanna have, that sexy toned body, it's not just a body with less fat, it's also especially a body with more muscle. Okay, so let's go through step one, how to do a reverse, why you would do it, and the benefits of it, and how this is gonna set you up for a successful cut or a fat loss phase. You need to figure out how much food are you currently eating. So what you're gonna do is track your intake in an app like MyFitnessPal for 7 days. Then you're going to average out the grand total of what those days were, and then whatever is roughly your average intake, that is the amount of food you're going to start at. So let's say that comes out to 1,600 calories. Then what you're going to do is out of those 1,600 calories, you're going to set your macros, your macronutrients, protein, fats, and carbs. And the reason why you want to focus on macros and not just calories is because protein, fats, and carbs are all essential, but they all play a very different role in the way that you look and feel. So what you're going to do for your protein is set it somewhere around 1 gram per pound of body weight. Now, it doesn't necessarily need to be 1 gram per pound of body weight, especially if you do have a decent amount of excess body fat. For most women, somewhere between 120 to 150 grams of protein a day is plenty. So again, your daily target is 1600 calories because that's what we figured out was your average. And then out of those 1600 calories, 120 to 150 grams is going to protein. 1 gram of protein is 4 calories. So let's say you're gonna do 120 grams of protein. What you're gonna do is take 120 and multiply it by 4 because 1 gram of protein is 4 calories. That's 480 calories. So now we're gonna take 1600 calories because that's your grand total for the day minus 480. And now we have 1120 calories left over to go to carbs and fat. So exactly how much goes to carbs and fats is up to you. It doesn't really matter a ton. You just gotta know that 1 gram of carbs is also 4 calories, but 1 gram of fat is 9 calories. So fat is a lot more dense in total calories than protein and carbs. Okay, so boom, that is how you find your starting macros. So now what you're gonna do is you want to reverse up your intake gradually over time until you are at least 2000 calories a day. The reason you wanna get to 2000 calories a day is because that's really the minimum amount you should be having before you even consider going into a calorie deficit to hyper focus on losing fat. And again, the reason why is because you're going to have to drop your calorie intake by several hundred calories throughout your cut in order to lose fat. The more successful your reverse is, so the higher you get your intake at consistently and get your metabolism to be consistently burning that amount of calories, the more successful your cut is going to be. Because the higher your intake is going into a deficit, first of all, the more room you're gonna have to drop, which is gonna give you a lot more space to lose fat. Obviously, the total amount of food that you get to eat is gonna be a lot higher, and that is just great for so many reasons. Number one, it's going to maintain having a fast metabolism because you get to eat so much more food. Obviously, it's just more fun for you. It's more sustainable to be able to eat more food, and you're gonna have more energy so that you can feel good, but also so you can perform better in the gym and still be seeing better results. But here is the catch of reversing. The vast majority of the time, even though you are increasing your intake gradually through a reverse diet, you're still going to be losing body fat. This isn't absolutely guaranteed for everyone. It's going to depend on how your body reacts, but the vast majority of the time, you are usually going to see a good amount of fat loss even as you are increasing your intake. And this is for a couple of reasons. Number one, as soon as you switch to eating a high protein diet, that alone is going to melt the fat off of your body and bring on the toned look, aka because you're putting on muscle because you're now actually eating enough protein. And obviously it goes without saying, you need to be training, you need to be working out the right way in addition to eating the right way, because you can't only eat your way to more muscle, you have to train to build muscle. You need to, especially most ideally, lift weights. As soon as you switch to a high protein diet, that keeps you so full for so long, which therefore means you're gonna be burning more body fat, and eating more protein helps you to burn more calories because protein burns off the most calories when it's digested out of the 3 macros. And then of course, the fact that you're eating protein means you're building muscle, obviously in addition to training correctly. And therefore, as the muscle is coming on your body, your metabolism starts picking up, and all of that means that you are now losing fat. And this is why, even though you're going through a reverse diet where you're increasing your calories, you're usually going to see a lot of fat loss and a lot of toning up happen even in that stage because of the high protein and because you're lifting weights. So obviously you're burning calories from that, and that's putting on your muscle, and that's speeding up your metabolism all the time. All right, so it's a little bit complicated to explain exactly how it is that you're going to increase your intake because it depends on each individual person. And this is exactly why I really recommend getting a one-to-one coach. And if you're interested, of course, you can click on the link below, and I personally will guide you through this because it's going to depend on how your body is responding to everything that you're doing. Most important thing, of course, is that you actually are being consistent. You need to be consistently hitting your macros, which means 6 days out of the week, hitting your targets, being within 10 grams plus or minus of your protein and carbs, and 5 grams plus or minus of your fats. The reason fats is a little bit tighter is because fats are more dense in calories than protein and carbs. So doing that 6 days a week, your 7th day is where you get your free meal or your cheat meal, so that day would be off. And then of course that you're consistently lifting weights, and then also obviously that you're taking care of yourself in all the other ways, that you're hydrated, you're managing your stress, that you're getting enough sleep. All of these things are going to affect your results. So generally, as kind of just an average rule of thumb, you can increase your intake every other week. This is kind of the safe way to do it, is every 2 weeks to increase carbs by 15 to 20 grams. And then sometimes you can also increase fats, but most of the time you're gonna wanna increase carbs. And again, you're gonna do this all the way until you get to 2000 calories a day. Now you can increase your food a little bit faster than that if your body is giving you the green light to do so, if the biofeedback is saying that it's ready for it. So how do you know what your biofeedback is saying? Well, there's a couple of ways. Number one, obviously, is your hunger level. levels, because as you're lifting weights, as you're getting that protein coming in, you're building muscle, you're eating more food, your metabolism is going to start getting faster. So what that means is, let's say you started at the 1600 calories and that might have felt like a lot of food then. After a couple of weeks, you're gonna be ravenous if you were only eating 1600 calories, because now your body is burning a lot more fuel. So if you're getting noticeably quite hungry, that's definitely a sign that it is okay to go ahead and increase your intake. And sometimes you might be able to increase even more than 20 grams of carbs if you're really noticing the hunger. The other thing to pay attention to is for sure to be taking weekly photos, because you might notice that you're leaning out in your photos even if the scale is not necessarily changing. So if you can see that you are leaning out, then it's also a sign that it is okay to go ahead and increase your intake. And the last thing to pay attention to is the scale. The scale is a little bit tricky though, because it's not always going to do what you think it should. And going through a reverse diet, there's so many different possibilities that could happen. What you want to see usually is that your weight is more or less staying the same on average. Obviously there's going to be day-to-day fluctuations, but you want to see that your weight is pretty much staying the same even though you're eating more food and you're actually getting leaner in your photos. Then if you see your weight is actually going down a little bit, that's definitely a sign that your metabolism is picking up and it's safe to eat more food. Some of the time your weight is going to go up in reverse. Now, this does not mean that you are gaining body fat. There's a big difference between weight gain on the scale and body fat gain. So not all weight is fat, of course. And the reason why you might see your weight go up a little bit while you're reversing is just because you're literally eating more food. So you have more gut weight, literally the weight of the food in your stomach. And because, especially with the more carbs, you're gonna be holding on to more water and more glycogen, the energy that we store in our muscles from carbs. And with every bit of glycogen that we store, it also holds water with it. So you have gut weight, water weight, and glycogen weight. Also, when you're lifting weights and building muscle, your muscles get inflamed, and that can also contribute to a little bit of weight on the scale. And of course, for us ladies, if it is that time of the month, if it is close to your period or it's a week of your period, you're definitely going to be most likely a little bit heavier on the scale because of the hormonal fluctuations. You are retaining water, and you're usually going to look a little bit more bloated as well. So don't freak out during that week. That's totally normal. It's part of being a woman. Just ignore it and just keep moving on. Okay, so that is how you reverse. Make sure to reverse all the way up to 2000 calories. And in some cases, you can definitely go even a lot higher than that. You can go up to like 2500 calories. It's going to depend on your body and just your goals and everything else. But definitely you want to get to at least 2000 calories before you even consider going into a deficit. Okay, so now that you're at the 2000 calories consistently every single day for many weeks at a time so that your body's actually adapted to it, now let's talk about going into a cut, going into a fat loss phase. So how do you do that correctly? Well, first of all, you want to make sure that you're actually going to be able to cut properly, meaning that a cut should be somewhere between 12 to 16 weeks. We can't cut forever because it is stressful on the body. So that's why we got to be smart and strategic and can only do it periodically. The absolute max you should drag out a cut would be 20 weeks. And if you were going to do it that long, you're definitely going to have to implement some diet breaks. A diet break is literally where you would take a week and go back up to eating at your maintenance, or do refeeds. Refeeds is just 2 days where you strategically eat way more carbs, again, right around your maintenance level, so that you can replenish your glycogen stores, because since they are getting so depleted since you're eating less food. Okay, so let's say we got 12, 16 weeks, absolute max 20 weeks to go into a cut. So the thing with cutting is you have to make sure that you actually are completely committed to the cut in order for it to work, because the calorie deficit is the thing that is creating the fat loss. So if you are not absolutely perfectly adherent to your macros, and by that I mean, you know, obviously there's a tiny bit of wiggle room, but overall you truly need to be adherent, because that is literally what causes the calorie deficit. So if you are not for sure in a calorie deficit, you are not going to see fat loss. So you need to make sure that you are actually going to be able to dedicate yourself to a fat loss phase. So you want to ask yourself, okay, am I going to be moving across the country? Am I doing a whole bunch of trips? Am I just like insanely busy and I don't have time to focus on this? If all of that's the case, I would not recommend going into a cut if you know it's going to be very difficult to be adherent. So that's the first choice, is you want to make sure that you're actually going to have the time and space to dedicate yourself to doing a cut. Okay, so now once you got that figured out and you're actually ready to start cutting, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go into a mild calorie deficit. And this is really important that you do not go into a crazy calorie deficit, because when you do that, you are going to end up losing too much muscle. So the whole point of looking the way that you want to look, of course, is also having muscle on your body. So when you try to lose weight instead of lose body fat, a lot of that weight loss is muscle loss. And when you lose muscle, first of all, you're just gonna get skinny fat, which is not the way that you actually wanna look. And also, you're gonna be weak, you're not gonna have energy, you're gonna completely mess with your hormones, and you're gonna slow down your metabolism and make it even harder to lose fat and gain muscle. So this is why we gotta be really strategic about the way that we do a deficit. And that is why we just go into a very mild deficit. So technically we are eating a little bit less than the amount that we are burning, but it is not so drastic that we're just gonna end up losing a bunch of muscle. So the first drop you're gonna make is a 15% deficit, meaning if you were at 2,000 calories a day, you would drop to 1,700 calories a day. I'd say even in some cases you could drop just to 1,800, but usually that very first drop is gonna be somewhere between 200 to 300 calories. If the 300 calorie drop is gonna be a little bit too drastic and feel a little too hard initially, I'd say it's okay to go more to 1,800 to start, and then continue to analyze how your body's responding, how you're progressing, and then eventually you will drop more as you go throughout your cut once your body is telling you that it's ready for it, which I'm gonna explain how to do here. Okay, so you've made that initial 200, 300 calorie or about a 15% calorie deficit from where you were. So obviously when you're cutting, you still need to keep your protein the same as you did before, which again is around that 1 gram per pound of body weight, or somewhere between 120 to 150 grams of protein. So you're never gonna drop your calories from protein. You're only gonna ever drop your calories from carbs and fats, right? Because those are just the energy sources. Now we have to restrict your energy a little bit, so those are the ones that have gotta go. Now generally, since you are going to be eating less total calories, I think it's usually best to be a little bit more conservative with your fats and have a higher carb intake, because you can get more total volume of food for the same amount of calories from carbs as you could from fats. For example, you could eat 1 avocado, or you could eat like 3 sweet potatoes. So 3 sweet potatoes is a lot more food for the total amount of calories. That's gonna keep you fuller for longer. So you still want your fats to be around 25%, because if it's lower than that, that's gonna negatively impact your hormones, which we don't want. So you'd keep your protein the same, you'd put your fats around 25%, and then the rest is going to come from carbs. Okay, so in addition to going into a calorie deficit, the other part of accelerating fat loss is of course increasing your energy expenditure, aka doing more exercise, doing more movement. So the amount that you lift should stay the same. You should still be lifting 3 to 5 days per week, exactly as you are when you're not cutting. The difference is you're gonna wanna increase your cardio and or also increase your step count. So let's say right now you are only walking maybe 6,000 steps a day. A really easy way to help accelerate fat loss is to simply start walking more. So getting closer to 10,000 steps a day, or in some cases doing even more than that if you can and you just really wanna see your fat loss happen. But you should also be doing a little bit of actual cardio, meaning a moderate intensity. And if you have a fit watch, what I mean by that is that your heart rate should be around 130 to 150 beats per minute. This is what I program for all my clients and what I do for my own cardio as well. And you'd most likely want to start off with 2 20-minute sessions. I'd recommend doing them after your upper body days, because upper body is not as hard. So then that way you can go lift, do your upper body, and then finish off with 20 minutes of cardio. It doesn't really matter when you get your cardio in, it just matters that you get it done. The only thing is you don't want to do cardio before you lift, because you want to save your full amount of energy for the lifting so that you can get as strong as possible and build as much muscle as possible. So 2 sessions of 20 minutes to start. And the cardio that I would recommend would either be the Stairmaster, and doing it again at a moderate intensity, somewhere where your heart rate's gonna be 130 to 150 beats per minute, or you can do what I personally do, what's my favorite, and that is incline treadmill. Incline treadmill I love because it's not really actually that hard. It's not gonna feel super intense, but the fact that you're at that incline really does make your heart rate go up. So usually I say put it at an 8.5 and walk about 3 miles per hour. But again, just pay attention to your heart rate and make sure it's in that right range and you're doing it correctly. Okay, so now what you're going to do is, of course, you're gonna be monitoring your progress, monitoring your biofeedback, just as you are when you're going through a reverse. So now that we actually are in the deficit, this is a phase where we are expecting to see the scale go down, because we actually are trying to lose body fat. So there should be a drop happening over time. Again, it's gonna fluctuate day to day. It shouldn't be a fast drop, because remember, if you're losing weight too fast, that means you're losing too much muscle, which you do not want. Now, the very first week or 2 of your cut, you might see more of a drop than 1 pound averaged. It might be more like 2-3 pounds, and that is because because you're going to be losing some weight from the fact that you are now going to have less gut weight, so less food in your stomach because you're literally eating less. And with that, you're also going to have a little bit less water weight and a little bit less glycogen weight. So that's why there's going to be most likely a little bit more of an initial drop right at the beginning. But then after that, you should be averaging around 1 pound per week drop in body weight. Now, there are going to be some weeks where the scale is not really moving. Do not panic. That doesn't mean you're not making progress. Sometimes there's just water weight that's getting in the way for all kinds of reasons. One reason just being that as you lose body fat, the fat cells fill up with water. So that can mess with the fact that there's not weight going down on the scale. So this is why it's really important, of course, to still be taking progress photos, taking measurements, because that's where you're going to see that even though maybe there's not that much change on the scale, you are obviously getting leaner in your photos anyways. And that means the weight is inevitably going to drop after the water weight kind of regulates. So essentially, as long as you continue to see progress, there is no reason that you have to change anything in your cut. As long as you are noticeably getting leaner and or the scale actually is dropping at the rate that it should be, you don't need to change anything because it means that your body is still responding. However, after it has been at least 3 weeks of no change whatsoever in your photos or in the scale, that's when it is time to make an adjustment. And by the way, do not go changing things if you have not been adherent. You obviously need to be perfectly adherent to your macros, managing stress, getting good sleep, all of that stuff, making sure that you're doing everything that you're supposed to be doing before you go and make a bunch of changes. So the changes you can make is, number one, you can drop your calories a little bit more, and usually I would drop it another 100 calories. You can maybe max push another 200 calories if you think you can handle it, if you're not going to be too hungry. So dropping your calories, or the other option is you can go from the 2 20-minute cardio sessions to a full 60 minutes of cardio per week, which you could do in 2 30-minute sessions or in 3 20-minute sessions. And of course, another option is you can always increase your steps. So again, if maybe you're getting 10,000 right now, you can bump it up to 12, 15,000 a day. Obviously, I know that's really a lot, so that's not always going to be a sustainable option, but it is nonetheless an option. And so what you're going to do is you're going to keep implementing this all the way throughout your cut, all the way through these 12, 16, max 20 weeks of cutting. You're just going to keep evaluating your progress, your biofeedback, and implementing the changes, so calorie drops and or increased exercise and energy expenditure when needed. And if you implement all of these things correctly, the way that I am telling you to do, you're absolutely going to see really big changes. You're really going to lean out and you're going to have a very successful cut. Now, at the end of your cut, you're going to need to reverse out of that cut again. So you're going to once again implement the exact same strategy of reversing that I walked you through in this video at the end of your cut. And then you should be in a reverse for at least as long as you were in a cut. So if you cut for 20 weeks, you should spend at least 20 weeks, if not even longer, not cutting. And the reason why is because you need to give your body a break. Cutting is stressful on your metabolism, on your hormones, and even just mentally, you're gonna be like really over it by the end because it is annoying. All right, fam, so that is everything you need to know about how to lose fat correctly, how to do it safely, smartly, how to do it the right way so that it's actually going to work. So if you implement what I'm sharing with you in this video, you are going to be so successful, and you're gonna see that there is a clear science to this. It is not that you have bad genetics and you just can't get results. This absolutely will work. It does not matter who you are, doesn't matter what your genetics are, what your age is, none of that matters. Anybody can lose fat and gain muscle. You just need to make sure that you're actually implementing these strategies. And again, if you want help, you want to take all the guesswork out, and you want to just have a plan to follow and somebody who's guiding and supporting you, encouraging you, that you can ask questions to, that is exactly what my one-to-one coaching is. So you can apply for that and check out the details in the link in the description box. All right, fam, I hope this video was helpful. Drop a comment down below. Let me know what your biggest takeaway was, and if there's anything that you want to see from me. Make sure to go ahead and check out these videos here for some more great content about how to lose fat, build muscle, speed up your metabolism so you can maintain these results for life. And I will see you in the next video.